I don't want to lose my sight. That's way up on my fears of getting older and older. It might be on the top. We don't control these things, do we? What will be, will be. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not subscribing to some fate just happens to us. There's nothing we can do about it. Everything is scripted. Just deal with it. Not that. Of course, we're agents in our destinies, preparing, making choices and decisions every day that have much to do with what happens in the moment and in the years to come. Yet, things happen that we couldn't plan, that we wouldn't have planned. They're simply beyond our control. All that given, I still don't want to go blind. I'm seeing an ophthalmologist every year, getting regular exams for glaucoma and checking the pressure on my optic nerve. 15 in this side, 17 in that one. I know it could happen despite all my checkups and all my fears, but that doesn't keep me from wishing and hoping that I can see until the end comes. My father's almost completely blind, though still sovereign in his domain. That's formal speech for just do what he says. It's easier. My enduring, perhaps my single image of my paternal grandfather is of him sitting on a couch in a black suit at the funeral of my grandmother. He's erect, still, face forward, silent, completely blind. It's 1958, and I'll never see him again. It's even possible that what I'm remembering is a photograph of him, and the real experience is gone. It was a long time ago. The opposite of this childhood fear dogging me 60 years later is Bartimaeus. Maybe he's used to his condition, lived with it so long it no longer dulls his spirit, paralyzes his agency, reduces him to silence, resigns him to wait with no hope of relief before death. But it's clear that behind that dead optic nerve, Bartimaeus was a fully realized human being, alive, with vigor and spirit. He may not have been able to walk through the town square without assistance, but he would not be silenced. So when this Jesus, about whom he had heard something, came to town and was passing by, he called to him. And some in the crowd told him to be quiet. What about this crowd, these guardians, these insiders, shielding Jesus, administering his time according to criteria so fundamentally out of sync with the values of the one they wanted to follow and serve? They were saying, be quiet, you aren't important enough to be recognized. Shut up, your voice doesn't count here. Who do you think you are? They were saying, silence. You don't have the status to take up the time of this important prophet. And it parallels the voiceless state of so many in our society, all those deemed not fit to command the public square, legitimacy in the political arena, legacy admission in the inner sanctum of the Republic, not to mention its elite institutions, or among people who claim to know what making America great again means. It's that word, again. There is no period in our history during which we've redressed the genocide of the native population. There is no period in our history when we've made substantive, lasting changes that exist into the present and have a chance of surviving into the future. Changes to the rights, to right the wrongs of chattel slavery. These two oppressions at the root of our sickness. There is no again. Bartimaeus inspires the thought, louder. Not only should we not be silent about these intolerable assaults upon our common humanity, we should speak louder and louder, like he did, insisting that we be heard, insisting that something be done to protect rather than oppress, to celebrate rather than to denounce, to stand with rather than to stand by and in silence. Silence is sin. When a loud minority on either side of the issue dominates deliberations about trivia when weighty matters go unaddressed. Silence is sin when we witness words that slice and cut, and all we do is think something might be wrong. Silence is sin when thousands march seeking asylum, when to go back means certain death. Silence is sin when bombs are mailed to your opponents in the other party, on the other side, and all you can do is first say nothing, then dither and deflect, misdirect. Yes, you, Mr. 45. Silence is sin when we know, don't we? I know when I should have spoken up and didn't. Don't you? The crowd said, shh, to Bartimaeus. Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, and he got louder, louder. I was deeply angered, and I know I am not alone in this, joining legions now of good people by the announcement that Trump plans to define gender as either male or female and to assign it at birth with no legal means to change that designation. He wants to disappear a segment of our society, our family, who share the spark of divinity breathed on us all by the God of creation. And I was as deeply moved by Jennifer Finney Boylan's response in the New York Times. I hope you read it. I have news for Donald Trump. I do exist. Trans men and women exist. Gender queer people exist. We have been part of this country for hundreds of years. Redefining us won't make us go away. It won't restore your world to its precious, boring binary which I hate to tell you never existed in the first place. Yes. Louder. Louder. All it will do is make people suffer. Friends, I don't have to bend myself out of shape to say this is stewardship. This is the stewardship of sound and vision, sight and speech, seeing what we see, knowing what we know, raising our voices, standing with, standing for, giving ourselves completely to the work of alleviating the suffers of others, restoring to wholeness this broken and divided humanity, challenging until we change structures, policies, Supreme Court rulings, biased legislation, destructive narratives, distorted history, resisting this turn backward to a mythical former greatness, persisting in resistance with all this work takes. This week began with a redefinition of gender tweet. Was it a tweet? Does it matter? It ended with the shooting and killing of 11 people in a synagogue in Pittsburgh. The name of the synagogue is the Tree of Life. It recently, and I'm quoting here, hosted an event by the organization HIAS, which helps refugees from countries in conflict, many of them from Africa, South America, the Middle East. And according to a Pittsburgh newspaper, on the morning of the shooting, the man who did the killing reportedly wrote on a social media site, HIAS likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. We know who his people are. My God. My God. Why have you forsaken us? As if we could blame God for our failures. This is Christian stewardship. Our minds, our bodies in the streets, our money given to support causes that rebalance our resources, and candidates who represent the people, not the corporations who exploit the people. This is Christian stewardship, giving with gratitude to support the work of the Riverside Church as it serves re-entering citizens, older adults, underserved children, homeless neighbors. This is Christian stewardship, giving our bodies and monies to lift the made poor through jobs and quality education, affordable housing and health care at whatever cost and with whatever it takes. That's Christian stewardship. And you know I'm not talking, when I say whatever it takes, about violence here. Violence is what is being done to us. Denying health care is violence. Starving a child is violence. A poverty wage is violence. Ecological devastation is violence. Systemic poverty is violence. These were posters at the New Poor People's Campaign. Only focused, unconditional, patient, humble, truth-seeking, enduring love can defeat that violence. And a whole lot of organizing, strategizing, demonstrating. We had a class of people, about 40 people, for the last 5 weeks meeting every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock about just that. What we are seeing is in this violence is veiled hatred. I should cross out the veiled, shouldn't I? We're seeing hatred. Brian Stevenson says the opposite of hatred is justice. The opposite of hatred is justice. And justice is the creation of love. Bartimaeus, that's the last healing in Mark. It is immediately after the disciples, James and John, ask, "Who among us is the greatest?" Jesus asked the same question of them that he asked Bartimaeus. What do you want me to do for you? And Jesus makes it clear. He does nothing. Jesus didn't do anything. Bartimaeus is made whole, made a steward, made a disciple by his faith. He gets up and he follows after Jesus. That is what discipleship looks like. This is what it is to be a steward of the mysteries of God. We hear the truth, we see Jesus, which we know means seeing the other, and we get up. We risk all. We give all to follow and serve. We're responsible for what we see and hear, for what we know. We are stewards of the truth we know of the world, the reality of our experience, the truth of our common human experience. And knowledge for the Christian, seeing and hearing, isn't enough. It requires action. Being and doing are our lot. We are all stewards here in this together, following Jesus among the people, doing justice, creating love. And here we are back to Job, coming around now. Job finally abandoning his pro se defense, finally shutting up long enough to listen, to hear the truth of God. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? And hearing, Job is finally able to see as Bartimaeus sees. But now my eyes see you, he says. Job came to see what Bartimaeus heard. So why do we give? This is the stewardship question, and our Riverside campaign is a good answer all by itself. Gratitude. But let me put it this way. Why do we give? Because like Jesus, like Bartimaeus, like Job finally, we hear God and we see God's people. And so we rise and follow and serve. I heard Brian Stevenson earlier this week, and I borrowed Nancy's copy of Just Mercy. Just Mercy is the book, to read as much as I could before his speech at Union this past week. What took me so long? Read this book. Leave here and go to a bookstore or go to Amazon and buy Just Mercy and go online and hear him speak. Walter's story is told throughout the narrative. Before his trial, Walter was confined on death row. Did you hear what I said? Before his trial, Walter was confined on death row and kept there by authorities, police, prosecutor, judge, who knew he was innocent of the charges against him. This is clear. Walter's family took Brian Stevenson to a trailer park in a deserted area outside of the city. And Brian was surprised at the size and the warmth of the community of people who knew and who supported Walter. They were dirt poor, and they wanted to thank Brian for representing Walter. And they told him, "We don't have much, but you have someone we love in your care. Anything we have, you have. These people have broken our hearts." Riverside, we do have much. The world God loves is at risk. Stewardship means giving it all to God to serve God's people. Amen.